So again, I got cut off in part 1, but this is part 2 of my What the Fuck on Herb Abrams UWF. I'm talking about Blackjack Brawl, the main event. And I was talking about Herbie cookies before the main event. That's pretty hilarious that he tried to sell Herbie cookies because WWF had ice cream bars. And I used to buy ice cream bars a lot. WWF ice cream bars. They were awesome. God damn, they tasted good. They were like a cookie in the front and chocolate in the back and ice cream in the middle. I don't know what Herbie cookies tasted like, but they looked good. So the main event was a mess. Steve Dr. Death Williams, the champion for the UWF World Heavyweight title, defeated Sid by disqualification. If you're a new company, this is only your second pay-per-view, you don't fucking book your main event to end in a disqualification. You don't do that. That's not smart. That's fucking stupid as hell. You don't do that shit. Especially for your world title. That's just not smart. As a booker, as a promoter. You don't book your world title pay-per-view matches in a disqualification. I mean, I understand why they got to do it nowadays sometimes, but I don't like it. And my guess is Sid didn't want a job for Steve Williams. I don't think he did. It was a mess. Blackjack Brawl was a fucking mess. Beach Brawl was a fucking mess. The UWF under Herb Abrams was a fucking mess. The guy did seem likable, Herb Abrams. Like he did care. I think he's delusional a bit. That he thought he could compete with Vince. He was delusional. You weren't going to compete. Ever. Herb Abrams, never ever were you going to compete with Vince in WWF. They had a fucking Hollywood type budget. Their production was Hollywood level production. The video packages they did, the production, the lighting, everything was great. Your production was shit. Herb Abrams, the production was not good. Of your two pay-per-views I saw were not good. Production, it was shit. You had to light the arena. You had to make it all dark because nobody showed up, hardly. My final thought on Herb Abrams and the UWF. I will say the guy had passion and energy, but that was probably the cocaine. He did get the trademark, the UWF name, because Bill Watts never trademarked it. So that was smart. They got the UWF name and the trademark. But holy fuck. Herb Abrams UWF was doomed to fail. From the start, it was a mess. It was a train wreck. The booking was horrible. The talent seemed like they didn't give a fuck. And Herb Abrams, the guy, was just so nuts. And he did have a vision. He thought he was going to compete with Vince, but he was delusional there. He had Dr. Death at one point, I believe, break another wrestler's nose because he paid Dr. Death extra like $100 to break the guy's nose, I think, because Herb Abrams didn't like him or something. So that's pretty funny. But Herb Abrams UWF was a train wreck. It was doomed to fail from the beginning. It was a mess. The booking was horrible. The talent, you had a lot of big names, but the talent seemed like they didn't give a fuck and they weren't booked good. The matches were way too short and it was sloppy wrestling. It was not polished. I mean, not really at all. It didn't look like a good promotion. It looked like a train wreck of a promotion when you would watch it and see it. And at one point, Herb Abrams actually got Andre the fucking Giant to appear on a UWF episode of his TV. I think it was called Fury Hour. He got Andre the Giant. That was fucking huge. But it was 1991 or 1990. Vince was not going to use Andre anymore because he knew he was broken down. Did Vince use Andre? I don't know. It's hard to say. You could argue he did and he didn't. But Herb Abrams got Andre. I don't know how the fuck he pulled it off. Probably the Sports Channel money. But then Vince got pissed. Saw Andre on UWF. And Vince brought back Andre then in the summer of 91, in the fall of 91, because he basically hired him, gave him a payday to leave the UWF. So I hope you enjoy my what the fuck on the UWF part 1 and 2. UWF was something else. It was a mess. It was a train wreck. It was a car crash. It was so bad, but like a car crash, you couldn't look away from it. You had to watch to see how bad it was. And it was bad. And Herb Abrams is one of the worst, most, I think the guy's entertaining. But he was delusional and one of the worst promoters and owners of a company ever. Herb Abrams is worse than Dixie Carter, I think. So, at one point, Herb Abrams, I think it was on Blackjack Brawl or Beach Brawl, took the mic and was just screaming and shouting like he's having a high off the drugs or something. He was high as a fuck, and he just was screaming on the mic, started screaming about the Jews. What the fuck was that? And I think Herb Abrams was Jewish, I believe. But the guy started screaming some fucking anti-Semitic shit. And just nonsense because he probably drugged out on coke after a coke binge. And the guy passed away doing coke and hookers. Something he loved. So Herb Abrams went out his way with hookers and cocaine. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. The next What the Fuck shows and episodes will be on WCW 2000.